I'm used to making bold moves. I didn't follow someone else's playbook. I made my own. Whether it's dating, in life, or creating a business. I founded Bumble in 2014, the first dating app where women always make the first move.
Within just a few years of starting her company, Whitney Wolfe Herd is making history as the youngest person to take a company public and is now the youngest self-made female billionaire in the world. And, true to her mission of empowering women, the new mom and CEO rang the NASDAQ opening bell with her baby on her hip.
My playbook is really different than the majority of businesses out there. I'll let you in on a little secret. I didn't read any business books before starting Bumble, and yet I was able to use my instinct, my passion, my conviction in the mission, my deep care and loyalty to the customer to really operate instinctively and intuitively to build day by day, bit by bit. We went from being this little hybrid team of just a few people really running our Austin headquarters out of our now chief of staff's parents' house, just waking up every day trying to get that next download, convince that next person to make the first move. And then next thing you know, we're a multinational product valued over $1 billion with global headlines about the transformation we're having on dating and society. All with the goal of swiping away sexism in dating and empowering women to take charge of their personal and professional lives. People forget that friendship is love. That is the basis of a good friendship. You love your friends, and they help you love yourself, and they help you. I want to teach this class because I want each of you to know that what I have achieved is not impossible. It is very possible. I hope my experience can be part inspiration and part playbook for you to build your own successful venture in any type of business. In this class, we are going to talk about how to develop the mindset that helped me start and build a multi-billion-dollar brand. How to spark an idea, identify your customer, nail down the why of your brand, make your brand go viral, make noise to stand out, be your own kind of leader. Innovate along the way and build your confidence to succeed. I started from the bottom of my barrel. That is where my magic really started. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You just have to be passionate and to want to have impact in the world, whether that means staying at the company you're at and going to the next level, or if that does mean you want to take a leap of faith and branch out on your own and start your own thing that really moves mountains for you and for a community that you're passionate about. I want this to be a class for anyone that wants to take one step forward towards an impactful, meaningful career. I'm Whitney Wolfe Herd, and this is Masterclass. Let's rewind to 2012. I'm a year out of college, and I haven't really had a real job yet. But I just felt deeply passionate about having a global impact in some way, shape, or form. I saw what could happen with Facebook and with these other platforms when you could connect across the globe in the matter of milliseconds. I remember thinking, I need to do something through mobile technology. And by virtue of the universe, I would then end up in this tech incubator as my first real post-college job. And I had no idea what I was doing in a tech incubator, but it was exciting. And so in 2012, the mobile phone was exploding. And also what was exploding was socializing. dating. And in this incubator, just the second project we started working on would lead me to become a co-founder of Tinder. Tinder was the very first, quote unquote, socially acceptable dating app. Prior to Tinder, online dating was not something the cool crowd was doing. It was something that was historically reserved for people that were perceived to have a hard time meeting people. I was part of the core early team and helped lead the marketing efforts by focusing on millennials. And so the fact that we were able to popularize a dating app of sorts became transformational for the industry. As a co-founder and VP of marketing, I was really thriving at Tinder. I absolutely loved being a part of a high-growth team and a passionate team.
Tinder, the dating app that's winning the hearts of millennials, has recently been the subject of some controversy.
In 2014, while Tinder was on an absolute rocket ship, against anything I would have ever wanted, I had to leave the company. When I left Tinder, I was a lone wolf, left without any opportunity in the company I had helped found and create. And my departure would then send me to my darkest hour, which was facing a lot of online toxicity, abuse, having to really fight for myself in ways that I had never expected to before. But the departure from Tinder sparked and ignited a real fire that would become the ignition to Bumble. Who knew that the worst moment of my life would inspire a movement and a business that would make me whole again? I think all great businesses, if you were to really go back to the very early beginnings, most of them actually are ideas after identifying a problem or a lack of something in society. A big idea to me is really a big problem. And it really all started with one big problem, that the internet and relationships were toxic and broken. I will never forget the very first original vision for what would then eventually become Bumble. I was going through a very public breakup with Tinder, and I was getting harassed all day long by strangers, and even in some instances, not strangers on the internet. I was getting every threat you can imagine. This was before Me Too and Time's Up, so I didn't have a lot of public support or even non-public support because women hadn't really been publicly advocated for in the recent times, certainly not on social media. So I remember it vividly. I was actually crying on a bath mat. That's a real thing, not a metaphor. I was crying on a bath mat, reading messages, feeling like I cannot do this anymore. I don't know how to go forward. I feel alone. I feel abandoned. I feel completely paranoid in how to exist in this broken, toxic world. So I sat in the deepest, saddest moment maybe I had had in my life. And then I had an epiphany. I said, wait a second. If I feel this way, there's a 13-year-old girl probably down the street and millions more of them that are getting bullied on their phones right now. There's no escape for them. There's no getting picked up from school and clocking off and going home to a safe place. The bullying on the playground is now in the bedroom. And I deeply, deeply felt a pull and a need to go and fix it. And I got a piece of paper and I got a pencil and I started wireframing what I called Mercy. And Mercy was going to be the first ever positive, kind social network. It's going to start as girls and women only, where they were going to only be able to engage with each other through compliments, to spread kindness, to spread goodness, to bring each other up. Because I had this theory, if hate can be so viral and toxicity can be so viral, then love and kindness can be too. And that was the very first day that I decided to start again, to really pick myself up and build something new. And they always say lightning strikes once, but in this instance, it struck twice. Every single person, you included, whoever's watching this, has had something break their heart. And if you can lean into that and actually sink into that moment of pain or confusion or this isn't fair, that's where the idea starts to come from. If I had not been treated the way I was treated online, I would have never had that deep pain surrounding online toxicity and abuse, and I would have never been inspired to go and try to fix it. And without that, there would be no Bumble today. And so a lot of people walk around thinking, I want to start a business. I just need that big idea. But I think they're missing what they're actually looking for. What they need to do is identify what is it in society or in your life feels broken, what do you wish existed, what do you wish was different. Sink into that, and then let the idea come from there. So to spark your big idea, start by solving a big problem. In my case, I wanted to solve the problem of harassment and shame online and create a positive, kind social network. And just like that, Bumble was born. Once you understand the problem you are going to solve, it is essential to identify your customers, and the first step is to define the white space. Defining white space means finding an audience or a group of individuals or a sector of the population that is being overlooked. When you know that someone wants something, but it doesn't exist for them, whether that means they're just accepting things that weren't designed for them, or they're actually doing their own hacks at home to tweak something because they couldn't buy it at the store. This is white space because the power of one is actually symbolic for the power of many. If one person is frustrated with something, I promise you there's many more of those people. So start with identifying one person that's frustrated with one thing and see if you can build upon that. When starting Bumble, I noticed this interesting phenomenon. We were in this moment where women were being encouraged to be as progressive and forward-thinking and as equal as possible in the boardroom, in the classroom, in their personal lives, financially. But the one place that was still so held back was their relationships. So here we had this dynamic and this narrative that was telling women to jump forward in their careers and go after their life and, have financial freedom. But I actually sat in that and said, wait a second, we're missing the most important piece. How can we empower women in the boardroom? And how can we empower women in society if they're disempowered in their relationships, at home, in their safe space? So I actually went back to the heart and the center of this problem, which was there were more single women than ever before. There were more women that were ambitious and looking to take on the world and start businesses and to conquer their dreams. But relationships were as toxic as ever. Empowerment was a conversation that lived outside the home. And I felt like that was broken. And that's why we pivoted from starting a friendship app called Merci to the dating app we would then call Bumble. Finding the white space is something each of you can do. All of us have felt ignored. All of us have a friend who feels underserved. All of us has a parent that feels like their needs are completely looked over. For me, the white space was women were treated unfairly in relationships. But no one talked about it. No one challenged it. That's the way it was. So start with that's the way it was, and then build upon that and say, but it's not the way it has to be. And this is how you find your white space. And if you really think about how I did this at Bumble, was I really looked at what do women want? And actually, more importantly, what do they not want? What is going on right now? What are we serving them right now in the dating industry, in the relationship space, on and offline, that actually, when you get them behind closed doors and ask them, hey, do you like that? They don't. Figure out what they don't want, and then build what they do want from there. Take those bits and pieces, and that's how you identify your white space. That could actually be the beginning of your multi-billion-dollar idea. When you look at what online dating was in 2012, it was a lucrative industry, but why was it lucrative? Because a handful of men had founded a handful of companies that they realized they could get men that they felt they related to who would pay to connect with someone because maybe they had challenges connecting offline. So what they did was they went after the male audience, and they built an entire monetization strategy and product strategy off of monetizing males. But what they failed to realize was there'd be nothing to monetize if women didn't come to the product. They didn't feel safe. They didn't feel happy. They didn't feel like they were getting the experience they were looking for. But because they had built these products that were really just focused on monetizing men, guess what that meant? It came at the expense of women. So men were paying to essentially spam and harass women. So that was how they were making their money. The monetization model was broken. So when I started Bumble, I really, from day one, thought about how to revolutionize, reimagine, and innovate a new product that would not objectify women, that would not take advantage of women and exploit them at the expense of their happiness and their safety, so that we could make $1 from a man on the other side. And this was in an uncharted, untapped opportunity, which was ridiculous to me at the time because women were 50% of the equation. And in fact, more than 50% of the importance of the equation. If women aren't happy, why would anybody else show up on a product? How do we actually engineer safety, kindness, better behavior, a kinder, more welcoming space from the baseline? And this is what made Bumble so revolutionary. Bumble started as a dating app where women always make the first move. They have 24 hours to send the first message, and the receiving end has 24 hours to respond. This added more ephemeral behavior, and it mimicked real life more in the sense of if you met someone in the coffee shop, you'd have to go up to them and say hello. You wouldn't have endless weeks and days and years upon years to start a conversation. And I can remember the exact moment I cracked the key feature that would become the pillar of the app. I'll never forget it. I remember we were thinking, okay, we're going to build a brand that protects women and advocates for women. And we know we're going to do it in dating, but how? What does that look like? How do you really empower women when it comes to dating? And we struggled with this, and no one really could figure it out. And then one day it clicked. My own friends in college, these amazing women who were studying to get double degrees, and they were going to embark on their own lives in New York City when they graduated, living on their own, making their own means. They told me texting a guy first was a cardinal sin. What's broken is that men have to go first. They have to go first in the bar, they have to go first in the classroom, they have to go first in the restaurant, they have to go first in every facet of dating. And they have to go first online. If a woman went first, she'd be called names. She'd be considered desperate, crazy. Something must have been wrong with her to go first. But men, if you think about what that did to men too, is it put so much pressure and rejection. It set them up for failure. Because if a man, since he was a little boy on the playground, has been trained to chase girls, go after them, and they're going to play hard to get, he is going to be very, very used to being rejected. And that rejection causes self-esteem issues. It causes self-hatred. So when you layer rejection in dating with a profile screen and anonymity, that rejection converts into hate and toxicity. This is the whole problem, that men have to go first. So we're going to flip this on its head. We are going to build a dating app that doesn't reinvent the dynamics of how people connect, but every single time a mutual match is made, women will go first. And that's how we distinguish Bumble from every other dating app out there. Women are no longer chosen, they get to choose first. Not just once a year, not just this celebratory Women's History Month or Sadie Hawkins Day, but every single time. And that would have a categorical, huge impact. It would recalibrate the dynamics of relationships. A great big idea doesn't have to be complex. It can be so simple. It can be a small tweak that could have a seismic effect. I've explored how to find your customer, identify ignored and underserved audiences, figure out what they want and what they don't want, look at existing models, pinpoint what you can fix, and remember your idea does not have to be complex. Nailing down the why is the most important part of starting a company and being able to build the company, build culture. It is your nucleus, it's your North Star. It will carry you in the worst of storms and on the bluest days. So I think having an emotional attachment to what you are building really matters. And I think really being passionate about the problem you're solving for the customer you're serving. Even if you're not starting a company, even if you are starting a new, fresh idea within a company, or you're spearheading that next big initiative, the why is where it starts. It's what connects you to the consumer. It's what connects you to the actual 360 strategy, and it is what keeps the entire team aligned. From speaking to a handful of male founders from previous dating products, the why was very different than mine. The why was their words, not mine. Girls or women aren't talking to me. I have a hard time meeting them. They don't respond to me. So I'll just pay to get them to talk to me. I'll pay to send them endless messages, and then maybe they'll talk to me. So a lot of these men went and built products that basically mimicked their own dissatisfaction with dating. But what they were missing was that wasn't the way to actually get healthy, kind, positive interactions. That wasn't the way to get people to respond to them, to just pay to spam them or send endless messages. Because no one had done it differently, because no one had actually thought about what the real problem was and built a solution, this is just the way these dating apps continued to be built year after year. So my why is very simple. I'm a firm believer that if you do not have healthy relationships in your home, in your romantic life, in your friendships, it is impossible to live a fulfilling and healthy life. I firmly believe that if we fix relationships, we can really fix so much of what is broken in society. That if we could build a social platform that would make people feel better about themselves, no longer getting comments about how unattractive they are or how unloved they are, how uninvited they are, how stupid they are, whatever people say to each other on the internet. If we could actually shift the mindset and get people to feel good about themselves, I thought that that would be the long-term solution. You can't just block and report people for the rest of your lives. We have to actually take people's pain and help them feel better about themselves so that they will be kinder to others. That was the original intention of Merci, the first incarnation of Bumble. And it is fascinating to see how this has really manifested into Bumble today. Anyone starting a business, start with your values. And for me, my first value is safety. And that is reflected in Bumble. Safety by design is how I live my life, and it's how we build our company. So really understand, what are your values? Brands have the DNA of their founders. When you pick up a product, you can feel it. You can sense the people behind the product. And so you better be sure that your values are intact with the product you want to put out into the world. Sit down with a piece of paper and write about who you are. What do I want to put out into the world? What do I want to contribute? What do I want my energy to give off? What do I want to be? What impact do I want to make? And before you can answer that manifesto for your brand, you have to answer it for yourself. So if your why is like mine, to create healthy and equitable relationships, that never changes. That's indestructible. That's concrete. But the how can manifest. The how can shapeshift. I'll give you a great example of this. Why at Bumble remains exactly as it was in 2014, to create a world where all relationships are healthy and equitable. How in 2014 was women making the first move. How today is evolving beyond that because gender has evolved. The conversation around who goes first might not even be our how anymore. But when you're fulfilling a huge mission, you have to start somewhere. We started with a heterosexual experience. We very, very rapidly put a lot of focus on the LGBTQ experience. We were always, from day one, always available to all genders and all sexualities. So what we are doing today is an expanding opportunity to bring safe and equitable connections to life. So for example, in our product, we now have compliments. Compliments still fulfills that original mission of a kind, equitable, safe space where anybody can bypass the matching state and just go straight to sending a message, but by way of a compliment. Our AI technology really encourages better behavior in those compliments. We ask you to second guess yourself if we think there might be something there that might not actually be in the form of something positive. And so we're really leveraging AI and the power of machine learning and all of our robust technology to really drive more positive, more nice behavior. I taught you about nailing down the why. To do this, you want to make sure you're emotionally attached to the product. Separate yourself from the competition and write out your values. Keep the why, but evolve the how. I was always completely perplexed why these apps that were on everyone's phone and were brands that mattered to people, they had no marketing. I never saw a branded anything for Facebook or Instagram on college campus, but I would see all sorts of branded marketing initiatives for fashion brands, for brands that we would buy at the grocery store, consumer beverages, whatever it was. I could not understand the disconnect. Why are tech businesses not branding themselves? This makes no sense. It's a business, it's a product. And so when I started Bumble, and actually I did this at Tinder a lot as well, I really tried to create a lifestyle brand around the product because the way you use these products is very much part of your lifestyle. It is how you build your lifestyle. It's who you find your friends from. It's how you find your partner. It is how you navigate life. Certainly how I want it to be seen. And so it was very important to me from day one to build a brand. And I think there's a lesson in this for all of you. Even if you're doing something that historically hasn't been consumer forward or hasn't been consumer facing as far as branding and marketing has gone, that's an opportunity for you. You cannot have a good brand without good characters. And what I would recommend is actually start by writing the brand story. Who is your brand? Give it a personality. What's its name? What time does it wake up? Where does it live? What clothes does it like to wear? Does it laugh until it cries? Is it stoic? Is it warm and fuzzy? Is it good in crowds? Is it introverted? Who is your brand? Give it a personality, define it, literally give it an entire life. Brand your brand. And that's how you start the beginning of your story. The name Bumble was a name I did not want. It's a really funny story. I was absolutely in love with the name Moxie, M-O-X-I-E, because when someone has moxie, they have gall, they have grit, they're brave. And that's exactly what the women on our product were going to be. And so by making the first move, you had moxie because that's where we were in 2014. It was wrong, according to society, for a woman to go first. And this story is really important for each of you because you might all be anchored on a name, but the pivot might be the best thing that ever happens. And so when we were shut down by trademarking obstacles with Moxie, actually a woman that I hold near and dear to my heart, she actually threw out the word Bumble. And I was absolutely, totally in the camp of no, because to bumble meant you were fumbling and you were stumbling. And I was like, no, this is about being confident and having it together. But then another woman said to me, wait a second, you could be the queen bee of Bumble. And it all clicked in that moment. All of a sudden, my wheels started turning 1,000 miles an hour and I started writing it out. I still have the original notes where it was find your honey on Bumble, build your hive. And it just started writing itself because this icon of the bee and the hive, and it's a kind society, and they spread goodness and honey. I mean, it was literally like it was written in the stars. And so the message here for each of you is you might struggle to find the right brand association for your idea, but think outside of the box. And even when you think a name doesn't work, try to creatively understand how it could tie to the mission, and it might just click. Contrary to popular belief, Bumble started with a pretty modest budget. We did not have countless marketing dollars to launch with. We actually had to be really scrappy, really thoughtful, and really, really creative. I would encourage each and every one of you, even working in teams with huge marketing budgets, to think like this. How can you stretch a dollar? How can you force yourself to think not in huge increments of spend, but in micro increments of spend? I'll give you a couple examples. What would you do if you had 5 $20 bills? What would you do if you had 5 $100 bills and you had to go market an app on a college campus? How would you get creative? Here are just a few of the extreme random acts of crazy hacks that we did to launch Bumble in the early days. We took $20 and we went to a cookie shop. We asked them if they would please write Bumble and our logo with some yellow frosting and some white lines on all the cookies. We then would go and hand deliver them to the sororities and ask the young women to please download Bumble in exchange for a cookie. That cost us $20. The impact was sensational. But that was only one half of the equation. I don't know how many of you have spent time in a fraternity house, but pizza is one of the greatest offerings that you could come with. And so we would put Bumble stickers all over the boxes of pizza, and we would deliver this delicious, huge box of pizza in droves to the fraternities. They would then open all the pizzas and get so excited, and we would leave a bunch of merch. Koozies, pins, stickers, you name it, keychains. We also let them know that we had just come from the sorority houses. It started to build hype that this was something going on all over campus. So lo and behold, you would have several sorority women download it, and then several fraternity men downloaded it, and then they started matching with each other. And that's where that snowball effect really started to take off. What we started to realize around college campuses was that a lot of teachers were putting up signs outside of their classroom that said no Instagram, no Snapchat, no Facebook. So what we did was we reprinted those signs and we added no Bumble. Now this might sound really contrary. Why would we tell people not to use Bumble? But here's the thing, no one knew what Bumble was yet. So when we associated ourselves with these products that people wanted to use during their class, and we insert ourselves into that assumption that that would be the app that they would want to use in class, this drove interest. This drove, what is Bumble? What is that? If we're not supposed to use Instagram, and I love Instagram, what's Bumble? I'm not supposed to use Bumble. All of a sudden, those downloads started going up. So these are the creative ways we resourcefully and maybe a bit insanely helped market our product to the world. You too can be ultra creative in really spreading your mission and your message. But what you'll see at the cornerstone of all of that was kindness. Nothing there was out of bounds. All of that was attached to our why. It was about spreading cheer, positivity, creativity, and it was about making the first move. So this is a message for you. Learn how to really relate to your customer. How can you really connect? How can you really understand your customer? And what do they care about? Where do they go? What do they do? How can you be a companion in their day, not just someone chirping at them? I showed you how to make your brand go viral. To start, give your brand a personality, then create a name that ties to the mission, get scrappy, thoughtful, and creative to spark brand curiosity. So once we got Bumble off the ground, we faced some important decisions on how to push ourselves out in the world and to get people to care about joining our network. When marketing to women, historically, it's been about turning something pink, using feminine writing, and using some type of girl power mantra. And for me, I really wanted to avoid the assumed. I didn't want this to feel like a girl power company because this was always about power and equality for all. Our ads are yellow because Bumble is yellow. Yellow to me stands for sunshine, kindness, joy, happiness. When it's the gloomiest day and the biggest storm, guess what? It's always sunny on top. And that's what Bumble stands for. When we set out to really market the mission and to really lean into advertising and out of home to really express what we were trying to do as a business and a brand, we wanted to really call out all of these toxic rules that were so ingrained in society and plaguing relationships by being really bold in our branding and our marketing. So for one of the earliest ads, I wanted to figure out a way to encapsulate all of this in just one sentence. So there's this age-old assumption. Many of us have heard it. Marry a CEO. Do really well in life, get good grades, go to a good college, and then marry a CEO. So that you'll be taken care of, and that's what you'll be. You'll be reduced to the wife of someone. And that's fine if that's really what someone's looking for, but why aren't we being the CEO? Why aren't we in the driver's seat of our own car? Why are we looking to become a passenger after we've worked so hard to get to whatever journey point we've arrived at, just to then hand it over? So we sat together as a small team and we said, wait a second, we need to really make a statement. And I said, okay, we're going to take out a bunch of billboards and we're going to put something really crazy on it. We're going to show the why of Bumble in one sentence. And that was, be the CEO your parents always wanted you to marry, and then find someone you actually like. Bumble. This went viral. This was our best performing ad of all time. And this really set us off to becoming the brand that we are today. Quality over quantity. I've always said to my team, I would take 10 super relevant customers to each other, meaning the chances of those 10 people wanting to interact with each other, I would take those 10 over 10 million that have nothing in common. Early on in Bumble, we were presented an opportunity by a mobile phone company where we could be pre-installed on every single phone. It was a unique and amazing opportunity, but we hadn't seeded the product enough. There was not enough network effect, so we turned it down. My original investor thought it was crazy, and a lot of other people in our finance department thought it was crazy, but you know what? It worked. Building a true, genuine, connected community, it's the power of one. One person loves it, they tell another, then they tell another, and then they tell another. That's your network effect. You don't want 20 million people to hear about something and hate it, so you have to really relate to the audience you're speaking to. And what we do at Bumble is we think like a neighborhood. We don't think like a city. We don't think like a country. We don't think like a global population. But what's so powerful about love is that the language of love is pretty universal, but the way it manifests is different. I grew up in Salt Lake City, and I learned something very early on in my life. What people liked in Salt Lake City was not what people liked outside of Salt Lake City. They were perplexed by the things that we did, the things that we ate, the styles that we wore. So I learned something from my childhood. You have to relate to your community. So in Mumbai, you might really want to go out on a first date to get that special dish that is so unique to one neighborhood in Mumbai. So that's going to be the billboard there. But in Salt Lake City, you might really want to go and get that snow cone in the summer, which is the big thing in Salt Lake City for young single daters. So you should talk about going out and getting that snow cone. You wouldn't do that necessarily in Beverly Hills or another part of the world. And so it's really being nuanced to what drives culture on the neighborhood level. Do not cut corners on building community. Never. Take the hard, long road when it comes to building authentic, genuine, sticky community. Loyalty from your community and genuine love from the community matters so much more than scale in the beginning. Breaking the rules to me means challenging what has been defined as the status quo. If we accept things for how they've always been, we'll never be able to progress. So everything in Bumble's marketing has always been about challenging the rules and making bold statements when people try to tell us our place. So when there's been repressive outcomes for women's health and for women's reproductive rights, we stand up. We have the platform. We can challenge what society or regulations have assigned to us. We can be the change we want to see in the world. I'll use an example. One day, that problem was that no matter what we were doing to combat it, we couldn't get people to reduce the amount of inappropriate, unsolicited images they were sending on broader dating apps. And what we saw was we had built this incredible feature called Private Detector. We leveraged AI well before AI was a big part of the conversation to detect inappropriate images at 99% efficacy rates. And it would warn you, hey, don't open this photo. This is probably lewd. This is probably inappropriate. And if you didn't ask for it, please don't open it. Then we would let you block and report that customer. And women were loving this, and everyone was so grateful for this. But the issue was we were getting droves of messages saying, Bumble, we're not getting the images on your platform, but then they're going somewhere else and they're sending us the images. How can we make this stop? So I called Caroline, our chief of staff, and I said, Carol, can you please call our legal team and find out what legislature, what rules and laws exist in the government right now to actually enforce some type of accountability or criminalize sending a lewd image to someone without their approval. Call it the Digital Indecent Exposure Bill, right? Is there some version of this? They came right back within a couple of days. No, Whitney, nothing like this exists. There is no way to criminalize this behavior online. And this felt crazy to me. And so the first thing I did was say, okay, let's build a solution. And we kicked off our efforts to introduce our very first bill to really criminalize unsolicited lewd images.
If indecent exposure is a crime on the streets, then why is it not on your phone or your computer? Everyone should feel safe online, but the data shows that we don't.
I testified to the Texas Senate, several months pregnant. We got a unanimous yes vote, and just like that, it became a law. We have since taken that to multiple states. We're working on our federal efforts. And around that, we built a narrative. So what did? We made this kind of lofty, quite complex legal issue into a very simple message. No more eggplant emoji pics. And this is how we really shared with the public that we were not just building change, but we're going to actually advocate to create change in the legal system. So how do you make noise to stand out? Well, you have to reject the historical tropes, embrace controversial, humorous, or quirky ads to get attention, insert your message into your customer's day, avoid shortcuts in spreading awareness, build a loyal, sticky community, and challenge the rules to create lasting change. When I applied for college, I already had a path set ahead of me, or so I thought. I got into SMU and I was so certain of the major I wanted. My dream was to be in the marketing and advertising school. I was so excited. I was going to go on and be a big marketing executive or founder in marketing of some kind. I really wanted to create. I really wanted to build. And when I went to school, I applied for the advertising school. And I sat down for the test and I thought, oh no, this is the wrong place for me. Every question was technical. Nothing about human emotion. It was about ROI of a billboard or churn or TV commercial ad buy spend. And I thought, I think I'm in the wrong place. I think I literally put the pencil down and just gave up. I was pretty shattered by this because my hopes and dreams of being this marketing person had come and gone. But then I was guided by my guidance counselor to take international studies. And at the time I thought, really, this is not the sure bet that I thought I was signing up for. But I leaped in and it ended up being the best marketing degree I could have ever gotten. I was able to learn about sociology, globalization, real studies of people. What makes someone tick? Why does Ronald McDonald smile in one country and not another? What is the implication of one pair of jeans? Who was involved in getting those to where the end game was on the shelf? And that was the best education I could have ever gotten. So my message to everyone listening, if you are applying to school or you are going after one career path or you think you found your dream route and you get denied or you get fired or you just simply don't make it to that doorstep, I firmly believe that what we perceive as rejection is actually redirection. While we were getting ready to go public, I had a young baby at home. I was a first-time mom. I had gone through a really difficult chapter after delivery, and I had postpartum depression following that. And then we went into a pandemic. So I was navigating, really figuring out how to ramp up this business to go public while I was just trying to figure out how to change diapers. And so I was living in this crazy paradox of being up until 2 a.m. with my new baby, but then having to be on Zoom by 5 a.m. for an investor call, where I would have a 5-minute break and just either take a nap on my desk or cry because it was such a tricky time. And maybe other CEOs would have kept those struggles private. But I think the best thing you can do is share what you are going through with your team. Candidly, I think I've shocked and awed a lot of male executives that I've worked with because I'll show up and I'll cry on all hands and I'll speak vulnerably about the difficulties I'm having somewhere. But what I think shocks them at first, because they're like, whoa, 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 this feels uncomfortable, this feels unsure, I would never do this. Where they become in awe is the outpour of support and community that forms around it internally. What it does for our teammates to see a leader be vulnerable, it elevates the energy of everyone. It makes people feel safe. It makes people feel connected. It makes people feel committed to the business, to the mission, to themselves. Vulnerability starts with self-reflection and understanding that if you've gone through something, you can assume others have, and to be able to share that can really help someone. So I feel like it's my duty to help normalize these very real things that just because you're a CEO doesn't mean you're immune to these things. I was a CEO when I had postpartum depression. I was a CEO when I was hospitalized and wasn't sure I was going to live with postpartum preeclampsia. You have to meet people where you want them to meet, your brand, your business, your product. Because when you're vulnerable, you're yourself. You're tapped in to what really matters to you, what really drives you. That is the only way you can lead, in my opinion. You have to lead with the same vulnerability, the same transparency, and the same expectation that you have of your customer and of your teammate. I explored how you can become your own kind of leader. First, don't try and be like those who came before you. Lean in to see what sets you apart and be open and vulnerable for your team. There is a line attributed to Henry Ford, the visionary behind the first low-cost mass-market automobile, at a time when only people with a lot of wealth had cars for transportation. It's my favorite business quote. If you had asked people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. You cannot ask people what they want for the next great innovation. You have to see it before they do. You have to feel it before they do. And this is something I have been obsessed with since day one. I firmly believe the following. If you want to be good, you just do what the investors say you should, what the customer says you should. But if you want to be great, you innovate. Innovation is being able to take inspiration from the customer, from the board, from the shareholders, but then to really think above and beyond, to see what's ahead. I felt that we were able to see the needs of women in dating before anybody else did. I feel like we have really had the ability to be one step ahead, to ride the wave before it even comes, so that we're leading it, we're not following it. My biggest fear is to be chasing another wave. I never want to chase a wave. And so this is a message to you. What might have been your best idea ever 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 months ago, stop and ask yourself, is this still working? Is this still relevant? Is this still what my customer wants and needs? And if the answer is no, you have to get out of your own way. You have to move past any ego or any, I love that idea, or but it was my idea. You have to move beyond it. You have to accept it and you have to adapt. And you have to take it one step further to dream up new ideas. Every morning I wake up and I say, where are the opportunities to accelerate the mission? Where are the opportunities to enhance the why of this business? How can I push impact further today? That's where you really can be innovative. I really believe that the majority of people don't feel like they have the authority or maybe even the space to question the rules. And for me, I have a potentially dangerous dissatisfaction with things that feel wrong. It frustrates me to the level of action. I have to do something about it. I think that people need to really listen to that early inkling inside them that says, this is toxic, this is wrong, this can't be healthy for you, there must be a better way, I hate that I'm living in the dark, why is my horse so slow, why doesn't my car have safety features, why don't I have anything to protect me in a crash? All of us can find these things in us, all day, every day. I challenge you right now, in whatever room you're sitting in, whatever device you're viewing this on, what is something right now bothering you? What is something that feels unfair? What is something that you wish wasn't that way? What is causing you discomfort? That is where your opportunity to innovate lies. The most important thing I can encourage each of you to do when you're setting out to build a business or launch into something new or go to the next level of your career is this: define your risks and turn them into your superpowers. Put your risks on the wall. For us, our risks were churn, were brand, were stigma, were fear of using a dating app, so on and so forth. So I wrote those things down on a wall, and I turned the risk into an opportunity. So let's take churn. If two people loved the product and they loved the brand, and they fell in love on Bumble and they deleted Bumble, that could have been the worst thing for us, or we could have turned it into our superpower. How could we get those two people to tell all their single friends, to integrate us into their wedding, to put us on a loudspeaker on their social media? How could we be a vocal part of their story forever? So we would lose two people to gain countless people. So we've combated this in two ways. The first way was really building a brand that people were proud of, that people would go around and say, I met my person on Bumble, you should download it. Creating that network effect of friend to friend to friend. The second thing is we built LTV, lifetime value. How could we keep you in our ecosystem if you found love? We've got Bumble BFF for you to find lasting friendships. And we have a mode inside of Bumble called Biz to help you find your next business partner. This is all about building the Bumble ecosystem, the Bumble mission and feeling that stays with you. There's very few brands in the world that inspire a feeling in me. Some of those brands are Disney, Starbucks, Nike. I want Bumble to be right there with those. It's simple to be great, innovate, but what does that mean? Well, think beyond the input from the customer and the company. Continuously question the relevancy of your ideas. Refuse to accept frustrations as a given, and turn risks into superpowers. It might be shocking for you to hear this, but along the way, I have struggled with a lot of personal strife around advocating for myself. This is a muscle I have had to really build over time. I was in a very unhealthy romantic relationship in high school. And I don't think I loved myself as much as I should have to really stand up for myself during that time. And you would not believe how much I just accepted as I'm a woman, this is all I'm deserving of. But deep down inside, I knew I was worth so much more, and I knew I could do so much more. And it was the stigma of being a woman here or being a woman there that restricted my own belief in myself. And it took me a while to realize that I wasn't the only one who felt this. The sad reality is right now that there is still a lot of implicit bias against women. There are surveys that have been run as recent as a couple of months ago that suggest in some parts of even America that the majority of people, respondents, women as well, believe that men are above women in a lot of categories, or men should do this and women should not do that. So my message to everyone watching today is, don't hold yourself back by society's perception of who deserves what. If you know that you are deserving of more than your compensation, or you are deserving more even in your responsibility pool, raise your hand and advocate for yourself. So I think I've channeled a lot of what I wish I had been in high school into what I'm building at Bumble. I stand up for that high school version of myself every single day. No matter what type of tough day I'm having at Bumble, or when I'm getting up and advocating and testifying in front of, legislature to pass these laws, or when I'm leading all hands that takes me out of my comfort zone, I'm really doing it for her. And I think that's important to never let go of. For the first 23 years of my life, I was terrified of public speaking. So I had a fear of public speaking the way people have a fear of heights, or a fear of flying, or a fear of spiders. It was a phobia of mine. I could have never imagined sitting here giving a masterclass and speaking to all of you. But one of the great mentors of my life changed all of that and taught me so much more in the process. So Kelly Hurd taught screenwriting and women in film, and I took her class and was completely blown away by this powerful woman. She had broken all the rules herself. She was a woman who came out in Texas back in the 80s when it was unimaginable with a young child. She made us recognize where there was misogyny in film, and she made us really try to look at biases. But I showed up one day and I found out that our grade was determined by us getting up and reading our script, presenting our script to the class. So I did what any complete terrified public speaker would do, and I got a doctor's note. She ripped up my note and told me, I do not accept doctor's notes for public speaking. I believe in you. You can do this, and you will do this. And it's not like you're standing in front of a huge audience. It's a class of hungover kids. You're going to be fine. So I got up and I faced my fears, and I did it, and I survived, to tell the tale. And she really inspired me, and she made me do something that I was really rather terrified to do. But here's the craziest part. 5.5 years would go by, and I would meet her son. Had no idea it was her son. He invited me to dinner, failed to tell me his whole family would be at dinner. And I walked in and I said, why is Kelly Hurd at our dinner table? He said, that's my mom. So that is now my mother-in-law and the grandmother to my children. And she remained someone really powerful to me and someone very important to me. She taught me to see through the assumptions of our prescribed rules of society and to not be afraid to bring out my most authentic self. Flexing that muscle of advocating for yourself is a really great skill to build. It's a really good confidence builder, but it's also a great way to really progress yourself in your career, inside or outside of this company or another. And one way to start doing this is by refining how you advocate for your own ideas. If somebody at Bumble wanted to convince me of some new innovative opportunity, what I would love to see from them, and what I believe you can do in your workplace with your manager or boss, is to take them, the problem and the solution, and present it to them. Really give them the emotional feedback of why you got to this place. I believe that we should build this because our customer is suffering from this. And this is my solution. Problem solution. Advocate for the customer. Advocate why it will be a business value add. Show how it will have a positive impact on both the customer, but also on the bottom line. If you can do this, it means you've thought through it strategically. You've understood the implications. You've understood it top to bottom. It's not just an idea, it's an idea paired with execution. Outwardly with Bumble, we were making all of these first moves. Women were making the first move, the company was making the first move. But behind the scenes, in my personal life and in my professional life, I was also breaking a lot of rules and making a lot of first moves. For starters, because I did not fit the build for the typical tech CEO. I have actually been ridiculed. I've been underestimated more times than I can count throughout my career. Don't have a computer engineering degree. I did not start this in my dorm with my bro roommate. And this is where I have a message for you. There is only one you. Do not try to do what the next person has done. Because believe me, I have made that mistake. Thank you to the class of 2021. It is such an honor to be here. And this idea really snapped together for me when I was planning the commencement speech at my alma mater, Southern Methodist University. I spent weeks studying the commencement speech of Steve Jobs and of Admiral McCraven and Oprah, and I was like, oh my God, how am I ever gonna add up to make your own bed?
If you make your bed every morning, you will have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task, and another, and another.
And I had this moment where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I trying to do my version of make your own bed? That's been done. That's his. I'm my own act. Like, I am my own act, and I got here by being my own act, not by watching what this person did or that person did. So why would I try to give a statement that wasn't authentic to me? And so my whole message was actually be your own act, because that's where you have an opportunity to stand out. Be your own act. As you enter the next chapter and for the rest of your lives, you're going to be told that there's a way things are done, a way things should be done, a way things have always been done, and that you should follow others' lead, do like they did, be like her, be like him, be like them, or even be like me. But that's not what it's about. It's about being like you. Stop trying to fit in. If you want to stand out, you can't fit in. And so this really all starts and ends with believing in yourself. It is maybe the hardest thing to do, but once you do it, all of the no's become fuel. All of the no's, you can't, you won't, it's impossible, those actually become exciting, because you know deep down that what you are doing in your mind, in your heart, and what you are trying to do, you believe in it. And so if you can make your own self-belief indestructible, then it really doesn't matter what anybody else says. If you just lean into what you can do differently, what you can contribute in a unique way, that's where you set yourself apart. There's enough of them. There's actually enough of me, but there's not enough of you. My biggest superpower, it is certainly not that I'm any more intelligent than the next person. I really don't have some supernatural set of skills, but what I do have is a deep commitment to listening to my intuition. When I feel something, I don't ignore it. I trust it. When I see something and that gut-mind connection happens, or that heart-brain connection happens, I pay attention to it. I nurture it. I clock it. I take real stake in those feelings that I get. They're downloads, and you have them too. All of us have this. So my biggest piece of advice to you is trust your intuition and open your heart, your mind, and your eyes to opportunities around you. They happen in places that you least expect. I think too many of us wait around for this very clear-cut opportunity, a knock on the door. But if you would open your mind to the signals of opportunity around you, allow yourself to be inspired, allow yourself to be curious, and allow yourself to be open to all the little miracles around you, that's the best business book you'll ever be able to read. I hope what each of you have taken away today from my playbook is that I don't want you to try and do the quote-unquote Whitney way. I want you to do it your way. I want you to listen to your own instinct, your own gut reactions, your own brilliant ideas. I will also tell you that a key fundamental pillar of my playbook is that if you don't dream it, you'll never be able to do it. Dream the impossible, and then start doing those possible steps. Bumble was bold and innovated by really focusing on a group of people that had been told they did not matter in dating, they should not matter in dating, and that they were essentially only there to feed the funnel of the core audience, which was, at the time, men. And it sounds silly in modern day 2023 to think that women were overlooked in such a big category, but they were. And what's really crazy to think about and gives you so much opportunity out there is women are still underserved in so many categories. Women are still decades behind in so many industries, areas, products. There's so much more to do to achieve equality. So I think let Bumble be an example to you. Figure out What is the Bumble version of X, Y, or Z? Use me, use Bumble as your inspiration, as your foundation, as your playbook to go and build your own innovative brand.